Good morning. Welcome to the online worship service here at Red River Unitarian Universalist Community in Denison, Texas. My name is Reverend Dr. Aija Duelm, and I am delighted that you are joining us for worship today. Our liberal faith calls us to engage the world and our neighbor with respect for one another. And because of that, we continue to gather in the safest ways possible, seeking to stay connected with one another and preparing for the day when we can greet each other in person again. As Unitarian Universalists, we are called together in worship to practice what it means to be human. We are called to bring a teaching of hope, to bring a saving message, and to welcome all in our doors. All who are searching, seeking, looking for more. More meaning, more service, more love. All of us gathered here together to practice what it means to be human. And so we begin by lighting our chalice, the symbol of both the heritage of our past and the light of hope within this church today. Our chalice lighting, the reading comes from Reverend Rebekah Savage. We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people, united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the fetters that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This is a chalice of audacious hope. Audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move with integrity toward our highest ideals. I invite us to ground ourselves in the covenant of this community, known as affirmation. Please join me in reminding ourselves of the promise we give to each other, and you will see the text on the screen. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. Call to worship comes from Stephen Kendrick's words. We are here to face the truth about ourselves, about this faith we love, and the ways it presently serves others in the world, as well as to open ourselves to ways it can better and more joyfully reflect our potential and core values. We want to know the ways we are bound to one another, as well as to the larger religious movements, normally beyond our sight or vision. We say we are open and diverse, yet it is too easy to feel stuck in old paths and stubborn habits, reflecting not so much traditions as our comfort. We want to answer the call to service to a world that needs our message, our hope, our revived energy. So we gather to learn, to unlearn, to hear, and to move forward. Let us worship together. I invite you to join in our opening hymn, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. The reading comes from Rebekah Savage's words called The Healing Is Not Done. To put primacy on whiteness as the default setting in how we see and experience our world means that we are not theologically consistent. We covenant to affirm and promote the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, and yet we have devalued the full inclusion of too many. I ignite my flame of justice and shine a light on this scar, because the healing is not done. The healing is not done because we are still called to do the work of dismantling white supremacy culture and decentering whiteness from our bones, from our congregations, from the ways in which we interact and support each other. We are called to fulfill the promises once made in the name of faith and proclaiming beloved community. We are called to match our words with our actions, to bring the holy in our midst by truly and without fear honoring the inherent worth and dignity of every person. This is a beautiful time of opportunity, beloveds, born of truly listening to people of color and beginning to repair the fabric of community that has been torn, ripped asunder by years of broken and empty promises. Words of good intention, unmatched by purposeful action. Beloveds, now is our time to lead with love and make right the ways our denomination has fallen short of our shared principles. We are a powerful, aspirational, covenanted people, and we are being called to account for our historic, moral, and spiritual failings in order to move into authentic, beloved community. Now is our time to harness our ability to reflect inward in order to reemerge with a power greater than ourselves that gives rise to a new day. Let us take a moment to pray, meditate, or practice silence, whichever is your preferred spiritual practice. If you feel comfortable, you may close your eyes or just let them rest. And breathe with me. Relax your hands on your knees. Relax your shoulders. Feel your hands resting on your knees. Relax your feet. Feel how they connect you to the floor. Now when you take a breath, take it through your feet and let the breath fill you with strength and peace. For some of us, this has been a difficult week, leaving us in a need of a moment of rest and renewal. For some, this week may have been a reminder that we do not know enough. We're not always patient enough, that we grow weary. We are here, not always perfect, not always wise, but always wonderfully and mysteriously human. As we reach out to touch one another in spirit, may we tap into the courage to continue towards the dream that lives within us. Let us breathe now together, and in quiet, let us pray the prayers of your own hearts. As we continue to breathe, let us feel all the ways that we are connected to each other and to all beings, knowing that what affects one affects us all. If you feel moved, please join in singing our next hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. Then our heart is in a holy place. Then our heart is in a holy place.
There is a story that is unfortunately not very popular. On December 2nd, 2012, a Spanish runner, Ivan Fernandez Anaya, was competing in a cross-country race in Spain. He was running second, some distance from the race leader Abel Mutai. This Kenyan runner, Mutai, had earned bronze medal at London's Olympic Games earlier that year. But now something happened. Mutai made a mistake in the finish line. He thought that the race came in 10 meters earlier than it actually did, and he stopped running. He looked around. People were yelling, telling him to keep running, but he did not speak Spanish, so he did not understand what they were saying. This is when Fernandez and Naya caught up with him. But instead of exploiting Mutai's mistake to win himself a victory, Anaya slowed down and stayed behind Mutai. Using gestures, he guided the Kenyan runner to the finish line. And this is the photo of that moment. This does not happen a lot in sports. I remember myself playing basketball in a team during school, and if someone from the other team made a mistake, dropped the ball, we did not wait for them to catch it back up. We grabbed it and tried to score points for ourselves. You may have done the same if you were part of any sports in your life. So it probably is fair to say that Anaya did not receive the approval of his trainer. However, he gained many fans who admire his integrity and agree that winning is not everything. What does living with integrity look like for us? If we define integrity as living up to our values, what are the values that guide us in life? What does it look like when we live up to our values, even when it might cost us winning the race? Some of us may have stories of the ways we have sacrificed something in the name of integrity. These may be stories of keeping the promises, refusing to betray a friend's trust, taking responsibility for our actions and not allowing someone else to be blamed for something that we did, not cheating during exams or on our taxes. These are stories that required us to step up to live up to our values. We may also have possibly stories where we did not quite live up to our values. We may have had to ask for forgiveness. We may have not kept a promise. We may have had times when we forgot that winning isn't everything and we bypassed someone for our own benefit. We possibly also know someone who took advantage of our mistake. These experiences remind us that we all make mistakes. We all, even with good intentions in our hearts to live up to our best, there are times when we fall short. And that falling happens to all of us. Sometimes when we fall, we feel embarrassed, disappointed, and then there are these times when the fall is so painful, so hurtful, that it is very difficult to rise up from it. It takes more time, more healing, and more effort to regain strength and learn some new wisdom from it. In today's reading, Reverend Rebekah Savage points out that as you use, we are falling short in living up to the promises that we have made to one another. She says, we covenant to affirm the interdependent web of all existence, and yet our actions show that we have devalued the full inclusion of many. She talks about the people of color. They have been part of our living tradition for centuries, and yet their voices continue to be overlooked, silenced, and even rejected with hostility. I want to lift up the voice of William Edward Burkhard Du Bois today, W.E.B Du Bois, a sociologist, historian, civil rights activist, and the first African American to earn doctorate at Harvard. Racism was one of the main targets of his many works. At the age of 89, Du Bois decided to write 3 novels. He was a prolific writer and had written a lot during his lifetime. However, now he wanted to write for the younger generation. In the first of the novels, called The Ordeal of Monsart, he says, I've been wrestling with 4 questions all my life, and every generation has to come to terms with these questions. The first question is, how does integrity face oppression? I will stay with this first question, and if you would like to know the other ones, you can certainly look up his work or join for the coffee hour and learn from each other what the other 3 questions are. But how does integrity face oppression? It is not an easy question to answer. As a white, middle-class woman, I experience privileges in this country. Many of them feel so normal to me that they do not stand out as unusual. When going to the store, I do not need to worry about walking down the aisle and being considered a suspicious person. When I'm on the road, I do not have to worry about being pulled over by law enforcement officers just because of the color of my skin. And I for sure do not need to be afraid to be killed by police if I was stopped, like Dante Wright. One time while living in St. Louis, Missouri, I got stranded in my car in the left lane of a rather busy intersection. I had 3 cars stop and offer help. When I shared this the next day with my Black colleagues, they said this does not happen to them because they are Black. So how do I, a person who strives to live with integrity, deal with the discrepancy between how I'm treated and how people of color are perceived and treated. How do I myself continue to participate in maintaining the system of white supremacy, even though I am deeply committed to justice and equality? Looking at ourselves takes courage. It takes courage to consider, what does it mean to be white? It takes courage to realize that we are part of the larger system of racism, in which our actions continue to perpetuate the idea that whiteness is the norm, the ideal, and the standard for the rest of humanity. This realization can be unsettling, troublesome, and challenging, because we can see any challenge to our racial worldview as a challenge to our very own identities as good and moral people. And when the stress caused by suggestion that being white has a meaning is intolerable, often a range of defensive responses are triggered. This process is what Robin DiAngelo calls white fragility. It serves to protect white advantage and superiority. DiAngelo also says that white progressives cause the most daily damage to people of color. Well, she defines the white progressives as those who believe they get it, they are in the choir, so they believe they do not need to do any more work of raising self-awareness, continuing education, building relationships, or engaging in intentional anti-racist practices. Instead, their white fragility is triggered, bringing out defensiveness and certitude of white progressives in ways that makes it impossible to even explain how they are harming. "60 years ago, Martin Luther King Jr. said, 'If you fail to act now, history will have to record that the greatest tragedy of this period of social transformation was not the strident clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people.'" He was addressing white moderates, and it still runs true today. But what is in it for white people to want to consider white supremacy and challenge it? Why would the whites want to examine our privileges and then go out of our comfort zone? What does it cost to the whites to keep the system the way it is? I mean, apart from claiming integrity and practicing congruence with our stated values as inclusive and just organization, what does it cost to us to stay as we are? How about the psychological damage to the whites of having to be the standard, the norm, and the oppressor, moving us to use anesthesia, things that help us believe that being well-meaning is good enough. What are we to gain? Genuine connections and shared reality. Because currently we and our racial perspectives are not, we the whites, and the racial perspectives of the whites are not trusted by people of color. Maybe we could see the many sides of the situation that we are missing out right now because of our white blind side. What if, in realizing that each of us is connected to all others, and if others are not thriving, we are not either. Many of us followed Derek Chauvin's trial for killing George Floyd last year. We all saw the videos, we heard the testimonies that made it so obvious that this was the abuse of power. And yet, many people of color struggled to believe that the police officer will be held accountable. In fact, they were prepared to react and protest if the verdict did not find Chauvin guilty. And if you wonder about this distrust in the justice system, think about the fact that this was the first time in Minnesota state that a white police officer was charged in the death of a black civilian. And I'm talking about charged, not the fact that he was also found guilty, because that is even more rare in this country. Trevor Martin's killer was acquitted. Michael Brown's killer was never charged. Breonna Taylor's killer was never charged with any crime related to her death. And it is not just the policing system that is filled with racial injustice. Among the many examples that could be named here, I lift up the very recent incident from North Texas area, just about 2 weeks ago, after social media mock slave trade of the few black students in the Aledo school district. The Aledo residents found racist flyers of the Great Sale of Slaves scattered around the area, attacking the very few black students and their families of that school district. These horrible racist behaviors reveal how harmful white supremacy is in our schools, in our neighborhoods, and in our society. So there's still work to be done, because racism is still very much alive in our present day, and many are suffering just because of the color of their skin. As UUs, we have made a commitment to work towards racial justice. We are claiming that Black lives matter. And yet, we also have failed to live fully into our promises. When we continue to center whiteness as the standard for all humanity, we are theologically inconsistent with our values, our principles, and our aspirations for justice and equality. Years of broken and empty promises, good intentions that were not matched with action, they seep heavy into the wounds of community. The healing is not done. The healing is not done because we still have work to do in decentering whiteness from our bones, from our congregations, from the ways in which we interact with one another. Last year, the report of the UUA Commission on Institutional Change issued an analysis of structural and systemic racism and white supremacy of our UU life. This report, widening the circle of concern, also includes a study guide that helps the congregations to engage into anti-racist practices, to reflect deeply, to talk about these issues, to be intentional in our actions so we can fully live into our promises. And while we may grow weary from the tireless demands of justice, the dream continues to live in our hearts. We still have a long way to go, but we draw on the courage to follow where the integrity leads us and seek the way. As Rebekah Savage says, now is the time to harness our ability to reflect inward in order to re-emerge with a power greater than ourselves that gives rise to a new day. So we keep working, reflecting, and moving forward with love and peace in our hearts. May it be so. I invite you to join our closing song, Keep On Moving Forward. It might be a new song for us. It is led by Reverend Christopher Watkins Lamb. I hope you will enjoy it.
We're gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Gonna keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna honor those before us. Honor those before us. Honor those before us. Never turning back. Never turning back. Gonna reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. reach across our borders, never turning back, never turning back. We're gonna work for change together, work for change together, work for change together, never turning back, never turning back. We're gonna keep on singing loudly, keep on singing loudly, keep on singing loudly, never turning back, never turning back.
As we go forth, I offer you one more time words from Rebekah Savage. We have gathered under the banner of a shared faith. We are born of a welcoming grace that extends and receives love. And we are touched by the ways we have fallen short of who we strive to be. And we here, we reborn, forged by a greater courage. Let us move from this place encouraged and refreshed for the journey ahead. As we extinguish the chalice, I invite you to say with me the words on your screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of the truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Sunday's best-selling author Anne Lamott says, "The only thing that can cheer me up is something bad happening to someone I hate, preferably if it went viral and the photo of the person showed hair loss and perhaps the lifelong underuse of sunscreen." But she does recognize that hating people is not the path to a good life. People who have what I want, she says, that is, purpose, heart, balance, gratitude, and joy, are people in community who band together to work on themselves and for human rights. Although Lamott attends a small Presbyterian church, that statement sounds very you to me. Come with me next Sunday as I quote from Lamott's beloved books, in which she writes openly and with humor about her struggles with alcoholism, her sometimes difficult relationships with family, friends, and lovers, and the faith that sustains her through scary, unsettling times.